attack, fast fatal heart impact, past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and packs. I back up my actions, fact don't ask, grab reactions, jacked attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're discreet now. Get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Kirusho here, and today, or at least tonight, my bad, I am going to be releasing part 3 of What If Deku Was the Horseman of War. And we are going over our third Horseman. I almost bit my tongue. Now, as you can tell by the title of this, the third Horseman is Death. Now, before anyone does say it, this Horseman is not Shigaraki. In fact, there's a reason why he is not the Horseman of Death. Now, with that being said, let us begin. Death. After they had to kill the other horsemen, they killed themselves. Now, they were seemingly, relatively, at least second in order. After they killed Pestilence, they were able to take out themselves and the other 3 horsemen simultaneously. So, that means that there shouldn't be a problem. The order that they died in, if anyone is curious, is Pestilence, Death, Famine, and War. War and Famine, it's harder to tell. Both their deaths were almost instantaneous with each other. Now, with that being said, we do have Death. Death, however, is not born in Japan. Death was looking for a vessel to use, and it was searching. After roughly a year of looking, it found a young couple. And it was in America. Death was able to, well, plant itself inside of a human host, or at least put their soul into an unborn baby, so that they will be born human, just like the other horsemen. Now, with that being said, the woman carries out her pregnancy. She does feel sick sometimes, but that's not really a bad thing. She just thinks that it's normal. And this is whenever they all do actually go to take her to the doctor. My brain did not want to work on me for a second. She is taken to the doctor and she does give birth to her baby. However, in that process, she dies. And it is very tragic. The doctors do take the baby away and basically get her put into the nursery. Yes, Death is another woman. Just like one of the other horsemen. Now, with the other horseman, or Death, being born, she is seemingly just screaming and crying, just like any normal baby would. And after some time, the husband is told the tragic news. His wife died in childbirth. However, the baby is fine and okay. Learning that he has a daughter, and he is then taken to go see her. Now, Death used her empowerment, not really meaning to kill her own mother. Now, with that being said, we will cut to roughly around 4 years later, where she is actually beginning to manifest her abilities. her body is beginning to grow stronger. And this is quite strange. Her dad is a researcher, or better known as the famous David Shields. Yes, Melissa is the Horseman of Death. Now, I had to slip that information in there right now instead of at the end of the video, not only because if I start talking about it, it wouldn't make sense, but in order to better give an estimate of her abilities. Now, let's see. Whenever she was 2 years old, something happened. There were seemingly two events that she can bring back to mind. Sometime around 2 years after she was born, within the same year, she had this instance. Whenever she was running around and playing around, all of a sudden, she stopped and basically froze for a second before turning to look in a direction and just thinking for 1 second. Now, she would freeze like this twice in the same year, and it was kind of odd. For 1 entire hour, she stayed looking at one direction before going back to being a normal child. Now, this was because she felt the other horsemen be born. She could feel them coming to Earth. Now, with that being said, I had to slip that in there, around the age of 4 years old, began to manifest her abilities. And it was quick to understand why she was somewhat dangerous. Whenever she was, running around in the backyard one day, she began to use her abilities. And it was quite apparent as to what they were. She began to, at least, mess around with things that died. Dead animals that either came into their yard, or just seemingly dead birds and pigeons. Whenever this did happen, she would just mess around with them. And as soon as she did actually inspect their bodies, or at least get her hands on them, she'd be able to talk about what the species is. And she would somewhat begin to mess with them. It was a bit weird, and David eventually did find her doing this, messing around with dead things. Along with that, there was a time that David took her out in public, and she was able to meet a man. Her dad was talking with a man who was a fellow researcher, and he was talking about something that he was doing. Whenever the man tried to introduce himself to Melissa, Melissa simply just did one thing. She pointed directly at the man and said the words, "Daddy, that man is going to die. He is going to die very soon." She didn't even hesitate, and the man was somewhat taken aback, confused. How does she know that? Thinking that that must be something weird, and David did try and tell Melissa that that is not a very nice thing to say, and to apologize to the man. Now, the man eventually did have to leave and go somewhere. However, after about a few hours passed, David did eventually find a news headline. The man that Melissa said was going to die. He died. He was in a car accident on the freeway. And the way it happened was because of a villain attack. Whenever he went into a tunnel, it collapsed, and a large rock fell onto his car. It was quite strange. How would she have known that? His daughter was very smart, and in order to try and get her off of the topic of dead things all the time, he tried to get her into his research, and beginning to at least get her some proper schooling. Eventually, they did move out to Island, where they began to go on to more Quark research. Now, David did actually have a few ideas and problems with Melissa. All she ever really seemed to talk about was death and predicting someone's. Then there's the fact that she can seemingly just always be found messing with something. Now, along with that, there seemed to be quite a bit of a pattern. Whenever they were back in the United States and not on an island, there was the fact that a lot of his metal tools and, well, gadgets he was working on, if Melissa was around them, some of them seemed to have rust on them. He thought it was either simply just, oh, water got in the thing, Melissa was messing around with it and probably spilled something on it, and it wasn't cleaned off properly, so whenever it sat out overnight, rust began to develop. He just tried to make up excuses in his head. Oh, she spilled water on it, she did this to it, she did this. And he couldn't make those excuses anymore, especially whenever they moved out to Island. And anytime she would run through the research wing, if she were to have had her hands on an object made of metal, there could be visible rust spotted on it. So, there was a lot of different things going on. Along with that, there was the fact that whenever she was actually messing around the park with the other kids, she was just watching a few of the rides. David did want to perform a quirk test. The doctors may have had a false negative. His daughter, she might have a quirk. One that would be, well, very strange. Now, he did basically try and get Melissa to come to his lab so that he can inspect it and look. See if his daughter has a quirk, perform a test, do something. And Melissa, she began to run through the amusement park, and basically forcing David to try and chase her down. Now, while David is chasing Melissa down, quite a lot of things are going on around them. Melissa, unknowingly, is using the ability of rust, or as I have it written down, rust corrosion. Now, as she's running past the Ferris wheel, she unknowingly uses this ability. As soon as she does touch a metal wire, whenever she does actually try and run past it and run by it, the wire gives. The metal immediately snapping in half and beginning to mess things up. The Ferris wheel beginning to move around and get very unsteady. As soon as Melissa does run by it, this is whenever a lot of pros do actually try and jump in to help people. With that thing moving the way it is, it's going to fall off the device it's on. If it does that, it's basically going to begin to spin throughout the park, and possibly even crush a lot of bystanders. Now, with that being said, this is whenever David also does begin to try and chase down Melissa. As soon as she did that, he was on the other side of the Ferris wheel. And a lot of people, they were seemingly trying to stay on and stay balanced as the thing was swaying around and moving. More of the wires began to give. After the third of the fourth one snapped, a man got sent flying over. And pro heroes, they were a bit too late. One pro hero tried to catch the man. However, while he was running, he was too slow. The man, he hit the ground. And Melissa saw the man fall and die. Talking about death and, well, seeing someone that's already dead is different. Whenever she saw the man go splat, something about it didn't seem right. And she began to cry. Pro heroes immediately trying to get her away from the area. As soon as David did find her, he tries to talk with her and calm her down. As soon as that does begin to happen, she goes on talking about how she didn't like what she saw. She didn't like what she saw. And David began to try and console her, tell her that everything will be alright. He was trying to make her feel better. Now, he figured that since this experience was so traumatic, it might be what's going on. And Melissa, for, well, what shall be known as a little bit of time, she begins to step away from the obsession she has with things that die. Now, as she did step away from that, David did also perform a test. His daughter is quirkless. So it was quite odd. Now, with that out of the way, Melissa, she began to at least try and develop somewhat normally, or at least how she did in canon, beginning by going to school and talking with some children. Not a lot of them care that she is quirkless, and she doesn't really see it as a problem. Now, while that is happening, we shall jump up to her being, let's see, she's 2 years older than Midoriya, so she'll be at the age of 7 right now in the current timeline, or at least where I have it up to where Midoriya is. Okay. Now, well, she is at the age of 7 years old. We do have what currently happens. After she was at school today and things were exhausting and she did try and go meet with her father and somewhat try and look at his research and help him with it, it was somewhat of a fun day. And there is what she's currently doing. She is currently just lying in bed and trying to fall asleep. And it doesn't really work. She is very tired. And right now, it's not really working. She just keeps tossing and turning and keep thinking. Her obsession with death started to come back. And with the fact that now she has friends and, well, her dad told her it wasn't a healthy thing, she keeps trying to shake it off. Now, as she is doing that, there is what she does right now. For one, well, second, she has an out-of-body experience. She is floating over her bed and looking down, surprised for 1 second as she falls back into her body and basically jumps out of bed, shocked and confused. Now, as she did that, she actually does try to fall back asleep. However, it happens again. And Melissa is kind of just surprised. This is the weirdest dream she has ever had. So, if this is really a dream, then she should just explore it, see what happens. And she begins to fly. She can just fly straight through walls and do anything right now. So she starts to fly around the island and explore. Now, as she is doing this, she's having a lot of fun. She can basically do anything. And she's doing so. Messing around and seeing what's going on. Whenever she does try and spy on her dad, he is asleep at the table in his lab, with a jacket covering his shoulders. His assistant probably put that on him. And then there is his assistant Sam, who is still trying to finish up a small bit of research. As he's doing that, she then flies back through the wall and tries to fly up high. If this is a dream, that means that she can go out into space, right? She wants to give it a shot, give it a try. And she does so, flying up very, very high, until eventually she does see an airplane. and while she is floating there, it basically flies straight through her. As that happens, she's just, well, very, very surprised and happy before she does look back down and think for 1 second. This is amazing, it's beautiful. She's never seen anything like this before. And this is truly amazing. Before eventually her dream, as we'll call it, does come to an end. And she does wake up early in the morning, get ready for school, and eventually head there, talking about the craziest dream she's ever had. She can remember every second of it. Now, with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed, and have an amazing night. I'll catch you guys in the next part.